The acrid stench of unwashed bodies and hopeless despair hung thick in the air of the slave pens. Runa huddled in the corner of her cramped cell, knees hugged to her chest, trying to make herself as small as possible, as if she could disappear entirely. Her cerulean skin was smudged with grime, once lustrous crimson hair now a matted tangle. Runa was Krellian, a humanoid alien race renowned across the galaxy for their beauty and grace, qualities that had only damned her to this wretched fate. She'd been captured by slavers as a child, ripped away from her peaceful village, and thrust into a life of servitude. For 20 long years, she'd endured the whims of cruel masters on a dozen worlds, each more depraved than the last. Now she found herself on Horgax Prime, a remote planet at the edge of civilized space, sold to Greblar the Hurt, a notorious trader in flesh and illicit goods. Runa shuddered, wondering what fresh torments awaited her. She'd heard whispers among the other slaves of Greblar's depraved appetites, how he subjected his personal attendants to unspeakable degradations. The Hurt was said to delight in breaking the spirits of the most defiant slaves. Heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor, drawing nearer. Runa tensed, heart hammering against her ribs. A raucous voice boomed orders in Hertsa, and the cell door shrieked open. "On your feet, Shutta!" A Gamorrean guard snarled, his porcine face leering at her. "The master demands your presence." Runa rose shakily, chains clanking as she stumbled forward. The guard seized her arm in a bruising grip and hauled her out into the dank hallway. She blinked rapidly, eyes adjusting to the dim light as she was dragged along, passing cell after cell, filled with miserable wretches who refused to meet her gaze. They arrived at an ornate door emblazoned with the Hurt's sigil. The Gamorrean pounded a meaty fist against it and a panel slid open, a pair of bulbous eyes peering out. Apparently satisfied, the door's guardian swung it wide, ushering them into Greblar's audience chamber. Runa fought down a wave of nausea as an oppressive wave of heat and the pungent musk of Hurt slime washed over her. The immense chamber was packed with a dizzying array of species, all exquisitely dressed, here to pay tribute to the mighty Greblar and curry his favor. The Hurt himself dominated the room, his bloated form sprawled obscenely across a raised dais, stubby arms draped over the supple green flesh of his Twi'lek consorts. "Ah, my sweet new morsel!" Greblar's booming voice oozed with cruel delight. "Come closer, let me look upon you." The Gamorrean shoved Runa forward, and she stumbled to her knees before the dais, chains rattling. She kept her eyes downcast, shaking with a potent mix of fear and revulsion. A pudgy finger tipped with a sharp nail caught her chin, tilting her face up. Greblar's bulging orange eyes roved over her hungrily, tongue flicking out to lick at his drool-slicked lips. "Exquisite," he rumbled. "You will make a fine addition to my harem. But first you must be trained, broken. I will enjoy watching the fire fade from your eyes." Runa trembled but held her tongue. Greblar chuckled, a wet, gurgling sound, and released her chin. He barked an order, and a tall, whip-thin Duras with a pinched blue face scurried over. "Varlo, take our fiery beauty to the pleasure gardens and begin her lessons," the Hurt commanded. "I expect her to be ready for the celebration of the Phyrexian eclipse." "Yes, my lord." Varlo bowed deeply. "It will be done." The Duras seized Runa's arm and hauled her up, marching her briskly from the audience chamber. As the doors slammed shut behind them, he leaned in close, breath hot against her ear. "Do not resist, girl," Varlo hissed. "It will only make your suffering worse. In the end, you will submit. They all do." Runa clenched her jaw, a single tear tracing through the grime on her cheek. Was this to be her fate? To have her soul flensed away, piece by piece, until nothing remained but a hollow shell, a plaything for a bloated monster's lust, as Varlo dragged her into the cloying perfumed gardens where slaves were trained. Runa sent a silent prayer into the uncaring void of space, a desperate plea for someone, anyone, to deliver her from this nightmare. The Duras chained her to a post in the center of a secluded grove and smiled a razor-thin smile as he withdrew a neuronic whip from the folds of his robe. "Now, pretty one," he purred, "let us begin." The whip uncoiled with a sinister hiss and Runa squeezed her eyes shut. But even as white-hot pain lanced through her, she held tight to a secret ember of defiance buried deep in her heart. She would endure this trial, as she had so many before, and she would never stop hoping for a chance, however slim, to be free. The stubborn spirit of her people, ground down but never quite extinguished, whispered that somehow, someday, she would once again know the sweet taste of liberty. As the cruel lash fell again and again, Runa retreated deep inside herself, to that last untouchable shard of her being, and there she hid her most precious possession, hope, fragile yet indestructible. No matter how hard they tried, they would never take that from her. It was hers and hers alone, and while it lived, so too did she. The Eclipse Ball was the grandest event in 100 parsecs, a dazzling spectacle of debauchery and excess that marked the alignment of Horgax Prime's 7 moons. Greblar the Hurt spared no expense in flaunting his wealth and power, transforming his already opulent palace into a phantasmagoria of lights, music, and writhing flesh. Runa stood on a raised platform, motionless save for the occasional clinking of her chains. Varlo had dressed her in wispy silks that left little to the imagination, adorning her with glittering jewels that only emphasized her status as a prized possession. A pretty bauble to be bartered. Her training had been brutal but efficient. Runa's body bore no marks. Greblar wanted his merchandise pristine. But the scars on her soul were raw and deep. The Duros took sadistic pleasure in his work, breaking slaves to his master's will. And yet, through it all, Runa endured. She retreated deep within herself to that unassailable core where her true self resided. They could shackle her body, but her mind remained free. She clung to that stubborn seed of hope, nurtured it in the hidden depths of her heart. It sustained her when all else seemed lost. Now, as the raucous festivities reached a fever pitch, Runa watched the revelry through hooded eyes. The great hall was a riot of color and sound, packed with representatives from 100 worlds. There were elegant moons draped in shimmering robes, boisterous Bessaless with their 4 brawny arms waving tankards of frothing ale, and sinuous Veltrons exuding pheromones that left many guests glassy-eyed with desire. And there, in the center of it all, presided Greblar himself, his bloated form jiggling obscenely as he guffawed at some sycophant's jest. The Hurt was in rare form tonight, his thick lips pulled back in a permanent leer as he surveyed his domain. Suddenly, a hush fell over the hall as a new group of visitors made their entrance. Runa craned her neck to see past the crowds. Curiosity piqued. The newcomers were like nothing she'd ever seen before. They strode in with a confident swagger, a dozen beings clad in strange armor that seemed to ripple with an oily sheen. Their faces were concealed behind featureless black helmets, giving them an aura of menace. Each moved with a coiled grace that spoke of barely restrained power. But it was their leader who commanded attention. He towered over the others, his armor a shade darker, shot through with glowing red lines that pulsed in an unsettling rhythm. A heavy cloak billowed behind him as he marched directly towards Greblar's dais, the crowds parting before him like water. "Lord Greblar!" the figure boomed, his voice a harsh electronic rasp. "I am Commander Karak of the Black Legion. I come bearing an offer from my master, the great Kalarath." Greblar shifted his bulk to regard the stranger, small eyes glinting with a mixture of greed and wariness. "You have my attention, Commander. Speak your piece." Karak inclined his head. "Kalarath the Unyielding has long admired your business acumen and information network. He wishes to engage your services for a matter of some delicacy. A trade of sorts." The Hurt leaned forward, pudgy fingers steepled. "Go on. In exchange for your aid in securing certain artifacts, Kalarath is prepared to offer a dozen prime worlds from the Outer Rim. Unspoiled paradises, ripe for exploitation." A ripple of excited murmurs raced through the assembled guests. Such an offer was unheard of. Even Greblar seemed taken aback, his bulbous head bobbing as he considered. "An intriguing proposition," the Hurt rumbled, "but I must have time to deliberate. Enjoy the pleasures of my palace for now, Commander. We shall speak again on the morrow." Karak bowed stiffly and turned on his heel, black cloak swirling. As he passed the slave platform, his helmet swiveled, and Runa felt the weight of his unseen gaze fall upon her. She suppressed a shudder, feeling stripped bare before that pitiless regard. Then the moment passed and the commander was gone, swallowed up by the teeming crowds. Runa released a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding, skin prickling with unease. something about these Black Legion mercenaries filled her with a deep sense of foreboding. They moved like coiled predators, exuding an aura of barely restrained violence. And their leader, even without seeing his face, Runa knew this was a being who would let nothing stand in the way of his goals. A cold tendril of fear wormed its way into her heart. What dark designs were being set in motion here? What role would she, a lowly slave, play in the machinations of such powerful and ruthless individuals? Runa had no answers, only a growing certainty that her fate, for good or ill, was inextricably tied to these mysterious warriors from the void. The fragile ember of hope in her heart wavered before the looming shadow of the unknown. But she would not let it be extinguished. Whatever trials lay ahead, Runa silently vowed to meet them with the same quiet strength that had carried her this far. Even a slave could dream of freedom. And sometimes, just sometimes, dreams came true. The eclipse ball was in full swing, the great hall a whirling kaleidoscope of drunken revelry and debauchery. Runa paid the chaos little heed, lost in thought as she often was these days. Her mind kept circling back to the Black Legion and their inscrutable leader. Whispers abounded of the Legion's fearsome reputation, tales of merciless warriors who struck from the shadows to mete out their own brand of justice. Some claimed they were a myth, a boogeyman invented to strike fear into the hearts of the wicked. Others swore they were all too real, an elite cadre of killers who left only carnage in their wake. Suddenly, a piercing scream rang out, cutting through the din. Runa's head snapped up, eyes wide. Across the hall, a knot of panic spread through the crowds. Beings shoved and clawed at each other in a desperate bid to escape some unseen threat. And then she saw them. Dark figures pouring into the hall from every entrance, weapons at the ready. They moved with ruthless efficiency, incapacitating guards and guests with surgical precision. Stun bolts and tranquilizer darts flew, dropping their targets in heaps. Through the chaos strode a single figure, tall and commanding in his black armor. In one hand, he clutched a stun baton, its crackling energy casting eerie shadows across his impassive faceplate. With a gesture, he sent a trio of guards tumbling, their weapons clattering to the floor. The figure's head swiveled, scanning the hall. Runa felt her heart race as that implacable gaze fell upon her. Time seemed to slow as he raised a hand, pointing directly at her. Runa couldn't breathe, couldn't think. She was frozen, transfixed by the aura of power and purpose that radiated from him. And then, inexplicably, he turned away. The figure barked an order, and a squad of his warriors peeled off, charging towards the dais where Greblar cowered behind a living shield of slaves and sycophants. The Hurt's eyes were wide with terror, his bulk quivering. He gabbled a stream of pleas and promises, but the Legion paid him no heed. They vaulted onto the dais, restraining bolts and stun cuffs at the ready. Runa tore her gaze away, hardly daring to hope. Could this really be happening? Were these mysterious warriors truly here to end Greblar's vile reign? A new sound rose above the tumult, a deep rhythmic thudding that shook the very foundations of the palace. Runa looked up, heart in her throat. Descending from the night sky was a squadron of ships, sleek and predatory. They settled onto the palace grounds with pinpoint precision, disgorging dozens more black-clad figures. They moved to secure the perimeter, their movements crisp and efficient. Runa watched, scarcely breathing, as a new figure emerged from the lead ship. He was human, that much was clear. Tall and broad-shouldered, he moved with the coiled grace of a natural leader. As he approached, Runa saw his face, chiseled and handsome, beneath his close-cropped silver hair. His eyes were the color of storm clouds, intense and piercing. The human surveyed the scene, his expression one of grim satisfaction. Then his gaze fell upon Runa and she felt a jolt run through her, as if she'd been electrified. There was something in those eyes, a flicker of compassion, of understanding. It was gone in an instant, replaced by a mask of cool professionalism. But Runa knew she hadn't imagined it. The human turned to the warrior at his side, the one who had first pointed Runa out. They exchanged a few terse words, then the warrior nodded and moved off, issuing commands into his comlink. Runa watched, heart pounding, as the squad leader approached her platform. He moved with purpose, his every step sure and measured. She felt the weight of his gaze on her, appraising, assessing. He halted before her, reaching up to remove his helmet. There was a hiss of releasing pressure, and then Runa's breath caught in her throat. He was stunning. Chiseled features, strong jaw, eyes the color of a stormy sea. His hair was shorn close to his scalp, a shade of deep, rich brown that seemed to absorb the light. But it was his smile that truly captivated her. Warm, genuine, it transformed his face from merely handsome to utterly breathtaking. In that moment, Runa felt something stir within her, a flutter of recognition, of destiny. "I'm Sergeant Cade Decker, Terran Special Forces," he said, his voice a rich baritone that seemed to resonate in her very bones. "What's your name?" "Z Runa," she managed, cursing the breathless quaver in her voice. Cade's smile widened, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Runa, a beautiful name for a beautiful woman." Those words, spoken with such sincerity and warmth, struck Runa like a physical blow. She felt her cheeks flush, her heart stutter in her chest. No one had ever called her beautiful before, not with such genuine admiration and respect. In that moment, something shifted inside her, a tectonic realignment of her very soul. She looked at Cade, really looked at him, and saw not just her rescuer, but her destiny. He reached out, gently removing her shackles with a deft twist of his hands. His fingers brushed her skin, sending a jolt of electricity coursing through her. Runa stared at him, hardly daring to believe. This man, this paragon of strength and compassion, had come for her. In the depths of her despair, he had appeared like a beacon in the darkness, a promise of salvation. And now, looking into those fathomless eyes, feeling the warmth of his touch, Runa knew with a bone-deep certainty that her life would never be the same. This was more than mere gratitude, more than the giddy rush of freedom. This was love, pure and simple. It had hit her like a thunderbolt, sudden and irrevocable. In the space of a heartbeat, Cade had become her world, the center around which her universe would spin forevermore. Some rational part of her knew it was foolish, that she couldn't possibly love a man she just met. But her heart, so long starved for affection and kindness, refused to listen. It had recognized its mate, and there was no going back. Cade, oblivious to the seismic shift taking place within her, simply smiled and held out his hand. "Come on, let's get you out of here. You're safe now." Runa stared at him, hardly daring to believe. You're here to rescue me?" Cade smiled, a small wry quirk of his lips. "We're here to rescue everyone. You're free now, Runa. Greblar's reign of terror is over." Tears sprang to Runa's eyes, a lifetime of pent-up emotion threatening to overwhelm her. She looked around, taking in the sight of Greblar and his cronies being led away in restraints, the former slaves weeping and embracing each other in joy. It was real. It was happening. After so many years of darkness, a glimmer of light had finally pierced the veil. Runa turned back to Cade, a watery smile on her face. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for saving us." Cade inclined his head, something warm and achingly human in his eyes. "It's what we do. No one deserves to live in chains." He held out a hand, an invitation and a promise. "Come on, let's get you out of here. There's a whole galaxy waiting for you." Runa placed her hand in his, marveling at the way they fit together, like two pieces of a cosmic puzzle. She let him lead her away from the platform, away from the pain and degradation of her old life, towards freedom, towards joy, and towards a love that would shake the very stars from their courses. Together, they walked towards the waiting ships in the bright, boundless future beyond. Around them, the newly liberated slaves hugged and wept, their faces alight with wonder and disbelief. Many fell to their knees, offering prayers of thanks to deities long forgotten. Others simply stared at the Terran Special Forces operatives in awe, marveling at these fierce, noble warriors who had risked everything to set them free. The air was thick with emotion, a heady mix of relief, gratitude, and unbridled happiness. Cade paused at the base of the ramp leading into his ship, turning to face the crowd. He raised a fist in the air, his voice ringing out clear and strong. "Today we struck a blow against tyranny and oppression. Today we showed the galaxy that the human spirit will never be broken, never be conquered. Today we gave hope to the hopeless and a voice to the voiceless. Remember this day, my friends. Remember that no matter how dark the night, dawn always comes." A cheer went up from the assembled throng, a sound of pure, unadulterated joy. Runa felt it wash over her, felt it fill her up from the inside out. She looked at Cade, at the fierce pride and determination etched on his handsome face, and knew that she would follow this man anywhere. Into the jaws of hell, into the heart of the unknown. It didn't matter. All that mattered was the unbreakable bond that had sprung up between them, the love that burned brighter than 1,000 suns. Hand in hand, they ascended the ramp, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. For they knew that together they could overcome anything. The journey from Horgax Prime was a blur of activity and emotion. The Terran ships were a hive of controlled chaos, medics tending to the wounded, officers debriefing the freed slaves, technicians repairing gear and restocking supplies. Through it all, Runa remained at Cade's side, marveling at the easy efficiency of the Terran Special Forces. These were no ordinary soldiers, but a tight-knit brotherhood, forged in the crucible of countless battles. They moved and acted as one, a well-oiled machine dedicated to a singular purpose, protecting the innocent and righting the wrongs of the galaxy. Setouand, in the quiet moments between the bustle, Cade never left her side. He was a constant presence, strong and reassuring, always ready with a kind word or a gentle touch. With every passing hour, Runa felt herself falling deeper and deeper in love. It was more than just physical attraction, though there was no denying the electric thrill that coursed through her every time their eyes met. No, this was a meeting of souls, a profound connection that transcended mere flesh and bone. In Cade, Runa saw a kindred spirit, someone who had known pain and loss, but had emerged from the darkness, stronger and more compassionate. He was a beacon of hope in a galaxy that had long since lost its way, a shining example of the best humanity had to offer. As the days turned into weeks, Runa began to heal, both physically and emotionally. Under the care of the Terran medics, her scars faded. Her body grew strong and healthy, but it was Cade's love that truly mended her shattered soul. He was endlessly patient, never pushing, never demanding. He was content simply to be near her, to offer his strength and support as she grappled with the demons of her past. Slowly but surely, Runa began to open up, to share the horrors she had endured, the dreams she had long since abandoned. And Cade listened, his eyes filled with a profound empathy that took her breath away. He understood her in a way no one else ever had, saw past the scars and the trauma to the fierce, unbreakable spirit within. Under his tender guidance, Runa began to blossom, to rediscover the joy and wonder that had been stolen from her so long ago. She laughed more freely, smiled more readily, her eyes sparkling with a newfound zest for life. And through it all, their love grew, a precious, fragile thing that they nurtured and cherished. It was a love born of shared pain and shared triumph, tempered in the fires of adversity and forged into something unbreakable. When at last the Terran ships reached the shining heart of the Galactic Alliance, Runa knew she was home, not just in a physical sense, but in the deepest recesses of her heart. She stood hand in hand with Cade on the observation deck, gazing out at the jeweled splendor of the capital world. Tears of joy streamed down her face as she turned to the man who had become her everything. "I love you," she whispered, the words a sacred vow. "I love you with every fiber of my being, every beat of my heart. You saved me, Cade, in every way a person can be saved." Cade smiled, his eyes shining with an answering devotion. "And I love you, Runa. More than life itself, you are my heart, my soul, my reason for being. Without you, I am incomplete." He dropped to one knee, his gaze never leaving hers. From his pocket, he withdrew a simple band of gold, gleaming in the starlight. "Runa, my love, my life, will you marry me? Will you stand by my side now and forever as we face the challenges of this life together?" Runa's heart soared, a joy beyond words filling her to the brim. "Yes," she managed through her tears. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." Cade slipped the ring onto her finger, then surged to his feet, capturing her lips in a kiss that seared her to her very soul. Around them, the Terran soldiers erupted into cheers and applause, their voices raised in a joyous celebration of love's triumph. And as Runa lost herself in Cade's embrace, she knew that this was only the beginning. Together, they would heal the hurts of the past, would face the trials of the future with courage and compassion. Together they would build a life, a family, a legacy, a shining beacon of hope and love in a galaxy that had long yearned for such light. And though the road ahead would be long and hard, Runa knew they would walk it hand in hand, their love a shield against all darkness. For they were one now and forever, a love to shake the stars from their courses, a love to light the very heavens.